Jerry had always been the kind of friend who could drop by Tommy's place unannounced. Their friendship went way back middle school, endless summers, and late-night video game marathons. But that Friday evening felt different from the start. Tommy had texted earlier, "Come over around 7, we'll hang out, maybe grab some food." Simple enough. Jerry parked his car outside the familiar 2-story suburban house. Warm light spilled from the living room windows, and the faint hum of a TV leaked into the quiet neighborhood air. He rang the bell, expecting Tommy to answer. Instead, the door swung open to reveal Jennifer, Tommy's mom. Jerry had always known she was attractive, not just someone's mom attractive. Jennifer had a confidence about her, a presence that made people notice. Tonight, she was wearing a soft beige sweater that clung just enough to her frame, and her hair fell in loose waves over her shoulders. "Jerry," she said, her voice lilting with surprise and something else, amusement maybe. "Well, you've grown up, haven't you?" Jerry blinked. Hi, Mrs. Carter. Is Tommy home?" She leaned against the doorframe, not moving to let him in just yet. "Tommy. He's running a little late, got caught up at work, but you can come in and wait. Unless," she added with a playful smirk, "you've got somewhere more exciting to be on a Friday night?" Jerry laughed awkwardly. "No, I'm good. Just didn't expect to see you first." "Lucky you then," she said, stepping aside. He walked in, the familiar scent of the house hitting him, freshly brewed coffee mixed with the faint floral perfume that, he now realized, was Jennifer's. The living room looked the same, though there was a half-finished glass of wine on the coffee table. "Make yourself comfortable," she said, motioning to the couch. "Can I get you something? Soda? Water? Or—" She glanced at her glass. "Wine." Jerry shook his head quickly. "Water's fine." She disappeared into the kitchen, and he sank into the couch, trying to ignore the slight nervousness creeping in. When she returned, she handed him the glass and sat down, not across from him, but next to him, close enough that he caught the warmth of her presence. "So," she began, crossing her legs, "how's life treating you, Jerry? Still hanging out with that same group of guys? Or have you matured?" Jerry chuckled. "I guess I've matured a little. Work's been keeping me busy. Not much time for hanging out lately." She said, sipping her wine. "A hard-working man. I like that." The comment hung in the air longer than it should have. Jerry cleared his throat. "So, Tommy will be back soon, right?" She tilted her head, studying him. "What's the rush? Afraid to spend a little time with me?" He hesitated. "No, it's just, we haven't talked much before." "Well," she said, leaning in slightly, "maybe we should change that." The conversation drifted to small talk work, old stories about him and Tommy, the time they accidentally set off the smoke alarm making popcorn. But every so often, Jennifer would drop a remark that felt just a shade too personal. A compliment on how Jerry filled out since high school. A laugh that lingered just a second too long. And Jerry wasn't sure what to make of it. When her phone buzzed, she glanced at it and sighed. Tommy's going to be at least another half hour. Something came up at work. Jerry tried to play it cool. "That's fine. I can wait." She smiled in a way that made his stomach tighten. "Good. I was hoping we'd have more time." She stood and walked toward the kitchen, her voice carrying back to him. "You hungry? I can make something. Jerry sat there, wondering if he was imagining the whole thing, or if this night was about to get a lot stranger. Jerry followed the sound of clinking dishes into the kitchen. Jennifer was standing at the counter, pulling a loaf of bread from the cupboard and setting out a few ingredients. The warm light above the island made the gold in her hair shimmer. "You don't have to cook for me," Jerry said, leaning against the doorway. She glanced over her shoulder. "Who said I was cooking for you? Maybe I'm just making myself something and you'll get lucky enough to share." Jerry smirked. "Fair enough." Jennifer opened the fridge and bent slightly to grab a package of cheese. Jerry's eyes instinctively darted down before he caught himself, looking away quickly. She straightened, catching his expression. A small, knowing smile tugged at her lips. "You're quiet all of a sudden. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just wasn't expecting to get dinner out of this visit," he said, trying to play it cool. "Well," she said, moving toward him with the bread knife in hand. "Life is full of surprises." She brushed past him to reach a drawer, her arm grazing his. "Especially if you're open to them." Jerry chuckled nervously. "You always talk to Tommy's friends like this?" Her eyebrow arched. "Only the interesting ones." She went back to slicing bread, the rhythmic sound filling the kitchen. Jerry stepped forward to help, grabbing plates from the cabinet. "You know," she said, arranging the slices on a cutting board, "Tommy never brings anyone around anymore. I think he's embarrassed by how fun I can be." "Fun?" Jerry echoed, raising a brow. She turned, leaning against the counter with her glass of wine in hand. "Yes, fun. I'm not one of those moms who just fades into the background. I like company. I like conversation. And I like..." Her eyes locked with his. "People who know how to keep up." Jerry swallowed. "I'll do my best." The tension in the room was thick now. He took a seat at the small breakfast table, and she joined him, sliding a plate his way. Cheese, bread, and a few slices of cured meat. Not a full dinner, but enough to feel intimate. They ate slowly, their conversation dipping between casual topics and more pointed ones. Jennifer asked about his dating life, his last relationship, even what kind of women he liked. "Confident ones," he admitted after a pause. Her lips curved into a slow smile. "Good answer." Halfway through their small meal, she reached across the table to brush a crumb from the corner of his mouth. Her fingers lingered just a moment too long before she pulled them back. "You really have changed since the last time I saw you," she said softly. "I almost wouldn't recognize you." Jerry leaned back in his chair. "And you? Haven't changed at all." "Flattery," she said, tilting her head. "Will get you everywhere." The sound of her phone buzzing again broke the moment. She glanced at it and sighed. "Tommy's stuck another 45 minutes. Honestly, at this rate, you'll be sick of me by the time he shows up." Jerry smirked. "Not likely." She set her phone down, then got up and walked toward the living room. "Come on, let's sit somewhere more comfortable." He followed, and she settled onto the couch, tucking one leg beneath her. He sat at the other end, trying to maintain a polite distance, but Jennifer leaned toward him, closing the gap. "So, Jerry," she said in a low voice, "what's the most impulsive thing you've done lately?" Jerry thought for a moment. "Probably coming over here without knowing Tommy wasn't even home." She laughed softly. Then maybe this will be your lucky night. The way she said it made Jerry's pulse quicken. He wasn't sure where the line was anymore, if there even was one. But he knew one thing. He didn't want to leave just yet. Jerry sank into the couch, the soft cushions almost swallowing him. The dim light from the corner lamp painted the room in warm gold, shadows dancing along the walls. Jennifer sat closer than before, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something faintly floral with a hint of spice. She leaned back, glass of wine in hand, swirling it slowly. You know, I always forget how quiet this house can be when Tommy's not here, she said, her eyes drifting toward the window. It's different, almost too quiet. Jerry glanced at her. I don't mind quiet. Neither do I, she said, setting her wine glass down on the coffee table. But sometimes, it makes you want to fill it with something else. Music, conversation, maybe even company. He chuckled. Guess I showed up just in time then. Jennifer smiled, but there was something in her gaze, a mixture of amusement and curiosity that made Jerry's chest tighten. She shifted, turning her body toward him fully, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. So, Jerry, she began, her voice softer now, what's the real reason you came by tonight? Don't tell me you just wanted to watch Tommy play video games. He shrugged, feigning casualness. Honestly, I just hadn't seen him in a while. And yeah, maybe I was curious to see you again, too. That earned him a slow, knowing grin. Curious, huh? About what? About... He hesitated, but the way she was looking at him made it impossible to lie. How you've been? It's been a while. Jennifer's eyes stayed locked on his for a beat too long before she looked away, reaching for the wine again. Well, I've been fine. Bored sometimes. Life doesn't always turn out the way you think it will. She took a slow sip, then set the glass down. Do you ever think about that? How different things could be if you'd made just one different choice? Sure, Jerry said, leaning forward slightly. But then again, maybe every choice leads you where you're supposed to be. Her lips curved faintly. Maybe. A pause hung between them, heavier this time. Jennifer crossed one leg over the other, her knee brushing his thigh for just a moment before she leaned back again. You've grown up a lot, Jerry, she said, her tone carrying a trace of something else approval, maybe even attraction. Not just older, different, more sure of yourself. He smirked. Guess that's what happens when you survive a few bad relationships. Jennifer laughed softly. Oh, I could tell you stories about bad relationships. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. But some of them aren't exactly. PG. Jerry raised an eyebrow. I think I can handle it. She studied him for a moment, as if weighing something in her mind. Then she leaned back, breaking the eye contact, but leaving the tension in the air. You know, Tommy's probably going to be a while longer, she said, almost casually. If you wanted, I could make some coffee, or we could keep talking. Jerry smiled faintly. I'm fine with talking. Good, she said, picking up her wine again, because I feel like you're holding back. He tilted his head. Holding back what? Your real thoughts, she said simply. Most people do, but you. She let her gaze drift over him in a way that wasn't entirely innocent. I think you've got more to say. Jerry leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Maybe I do. but maybe I'm just waiting for the right moment. Jennifer's lips curved into a slow smile. Well, don't wait too long. The sound of a car passing outside broke the moment again, but neither of them moved. Jerry could feel his pulse in his ears. Finally, Jennifer set her glass down and stood. I'm going to get some more wine. Want another drink? Sure, he said, watching as she walked toward the kitchen, the soft sway of her hips making it very hard to think about anything else. He leaned back on the couch, exhaling slowly. He wasn't sure how far this was going to go, but one thing was certain. The night wasn't over yet. Jerry followed the faint sound of clinking glass into the kitchen. The room was softly lit, a warm golden glow spilling across the countertops. Jennifer stood by the wine rack, her back to him, one hand on the neck of a bottle, the other braced on the counter. She didn't turn around right away. You know, she said, her tone almost playful, most guys your age wouldn't be comfortable sitting alone with someone like me. Jerry leaned casually against the doorway. Someone like you? Finally, she glanced over her shoulder, a teasing smile playing on her lips. Older, experienced, not exactly in their league. He smirked. Maybe that's because they haven't met the right someone like you. Jennifer chuckled, pulling the cork from the bottle with a soft pop. Smooth talker, I see you've been practicing. She poured the deep red wine into her glass, then reached for another. You want more, or do you want something else? I'll take what you're having, he said. She poured him a glass and slid it across the counter. Their fingers brushed briefly when he picked it up. That small touch sent an unexpected jolt through him, and from the way her eyes lingered, he suspected she felt it too. So, she leaned against the counter, sipping her wine. What's your plan tonight? Stay until Tommy gets back? Or? She let the word hang in the air, her expression unreadable. Jerry took a slow sip before answering. I don't really have a plan. Jennifer tilted her head. Dangerous. You might end up somewhere you didn't expect. He met her gaze steadily. Maybe that's exactly what I want. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet hum of the refrigerator filled the space between them. Jennifer set her glass down and stepped around the counter, moving closer until she was standing just a few feet away. You've always been different, Jerry, she said softly. Even when you were younger, you carried yourself differently, more aware. Like you noticed things other people didn't. He smiled faintly. And what do you think I'm noticing right now? Her eyes locked on his, searching. Then she took another step forward, close enough for him to catch the faint warmth of her skin, the subtle scent of her perfume. Maybe you're noticing that I'm not exactly pushing you away, she murmured. Jerry's heartbeat quickened, but he kept his voice even. I am noticing that. Jennifer's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Good. Another moment passed, heavy and electric, before she broke the tension with a light laugh. Come on, she said, brushing past him, her hand grazing his arm. If we stand in here too long, we're just going to drain the whole bottle. He turned, watching her walk back toward the living room. Her movements were unhurried, but there was something deliberate about them. Like every step was meant to keep him guessing. When they sat down again, the air between them felt different, closer, charged. So, she began, tucking one leg beneath her on the couch. Tell me something you've never told anyone else. Jerry chuckled. That's a big ask. Exactly, she said, sipping her wine. Big questions get interesting answers. He hesitated for a second, then leaned in slightly. All right. I've always been curious about crossing certain lines. Her brows lifted slightly, but she didn't look away. And what kind of lines are we talking about? The kind most people wouldn't even admit they think about, he said. Jennifer's eyes softened, but there was a spark in them now. Maybe those are the only lines worth talking about. Neither of them broke eye contact for several seconds. Jerry could feel the air in the room thicken, every sound outside fading into the background. And then, just when he thought she might say something else, the sound of the front door unlocking echoed through the hallway. Jennifer's expression didn't change, but her voice was calm when she said, "Looks like Tommy's back." She stood, smoothing her hair, her wine glass still in hand. We'll continue this conversation later. Jerry sat there for a moment, the tension still coiled in his chest. Whatever later meant, he knew he'd be thinking about it until it happened. Tommy's footsteps faded upstairs as he carried a bag of groceries. Jerry remained on the couch, glass of wine half empty, mind racing. Jennifer had returned to the living room, but now she didn't sit directly beside him. Instead, she perched on the edge of the coffee table, legs crossed, studying him as if she were reading a book. "You're quiet," she said softly, swirling her wine. "I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking about what just happened." Jerry chuckled nervously. "I'm not sure what to think." "That's exactly the right reaction," she replied, leaning back slightly. "You should feel a little unsettled. Life gets boring when it's too predictable." He swallowed, feeling the tension in the room thicken. Her gaze didn't waver. It was steady, almost magnetic. Jerry realized he had been holding his breath. "Jennifer, he started, then caught himself. The words sounded heavier in his head than out loud. She smiled faintly, setting her wine down. "You can say anything here," she said, her tone casual but loaded. "No judgments, just honesty." He leaned back, trying to appear relaxed, but the warmth radiating from her presence made it impossible to feel completely at ease. "All right, I guess. I've been curious. About a lot of things. About life. About people. About situations that feel complicated." She tilted her head, eyes sparkling with interest. "Complicated, huh? That's an intriguing choice of words. Tell me more." Jerry hesitated, realizing that whatever he said now could change the dynamic completely. "Well, some situations aren't black and white. Some lines. Maybe they're meant to be tested." Jennifer's lips curved into a subtle smile. "I like that answer." She shifted, leaning in just slightly, but not too much. Testing lines can teach you a lot about yourself, about who you are when the rules don't bind you. Jerry caught the faint glint of mischief in her eyes. "Sounds like you've tested a few lines yourself." "Maybe," she admitted, laughing softly. "But I've always believed it's better to explore than to regret. Life's too short for hesitation." The clock ticked quietly, each second stretching longer than the last. Jerry realized how aware he had become of every movement she made, every flicker of her smile, every glance, the soft brush of her hair as she adjusted it over her shoulder. He took a slow sip of his wine, trying to gather his thoughts. "You know, I never expected to spend an evening like this, talking like this. Jennifer tilted her head, her gaze sharp yet teasing. Expect the unexpected, Jerry. That's my motto. He laughed quietly, leaning forward. Guess I should start writing it down then. This is unforgettable. Her eyes softened for just a fraction of a second, and Jerry felt the weight of that look in his chest. Then she stood and walked toward the window, looking out at the street below. The soft glow of the streetlights reflected in her eyes. You know, she said, almost to herself, the world outside is predictable. People follow routines, rules, schedules. But inside a house, things can be different, unusual, exciting, dangerous even. Jerry's pulse quickened. Dangerous? He asked, though he wasn't sure if he wanted a full answer. She turned, her gaze back on him, and smiled faintly. Only if you let it be. A strange mix of anticipation and uncertainty filled the room. Jerry realized that whatever happened next wouldn't be simple or easy, but he couldn't deny that he wanted to see how far the night could go. Jennifer returned to her seat on the edge of the coffee table. So, Jerry, she said softly, are you going to stay quiet, or are you going to tell me more about what's on your mind? He leaned back on the couch, glass in hand, and met her gaze steadily. I think I'm ready to see where this goes. Her lips curved into a small, knowing smile, and for the first time that evening, Jerry felt a thrill of anticipation. Whatever game they were playing, it had just begun. Jerry remained on the couch, swirling the wine in his glass absent-mindedly. The room seemed smaller now, warmer, almost charged with a tension he couldn't shake. Jennifer perched on the coffee table, legs crossed, her gaze fixed on him as if she were reading every thought in his mind. You know, she began, her voice soft but deliberate. Most people talk too much. They give away too much, or not enough. It's all about balance. The right words at the right time. Jerry raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a skill you've mastered. She smiled faintly. Maybe, but even I enjoy a challenge. He took a slow sip of wine, letting her words sink in. Challenge, huh? You think I'm a challenge? Her eyes twinkled. Possibly, but only if you're willing to play the game. Jerry leaned back, feeling the tension coil tighter. And what are the rules of this game? Jennifer tilted her head, letting her hair fall over one shoulder. The rules? There aren't many. Mostly honesty, curiosity, and perhaps a willingness to step into the unexpected. He smirked. Step into the unexpected? That sounds dangerous. That's the point, she replied, leaning in slightly. Life's too short to follow every rule, Jerry. Sometimes you have to bend them, test them, see what happens. Jerry shifted in his seat, feeling the gravity of her gaze. Every subtle movement, every laugh, every glance carried weight. It was exhilarating and unnerving all at once. So, she said, tilting her head, what would you do if the unexpected walked right up to you? If it were standing here in the living room, looking at you, challenging you to see how far you'd go? Jerry chuckled softly. I guess I'd have to see how far I could push back. Jennifer's lips curved into a teasing smile. Push back or lean in? He swallowed, heart racing. Depends on the moment, I suppose. Good answer, she said, taking a slow sip of her wine. Her eyes never left his, burning with a subtle intensity. You know, Most people would freeze. They wouldn't know what to do. But you're thoughtful, careful, and yet willing. Jerry laughed nervously, feeling a mix of thrill and apprehension. Willing? I think that's a dangerous word to throw around. She leaned forward slightly, her elbows resting on her knees, voice dropping just enough to make him lean in subconsciously. Dangerous is exciting. It makes you alive. It makes the night memorable. The clock ticked quietly, the only sound in the room aside from the faint hum of the refrigerator. Jerry realized he was holding his breath, caught in the intensity of her gaze, the warmth radiating from her presence. Jennifer tilted her head, letting her hair brush over her shoulder. A slow, deliberate movement. You know, Jerry, the best moments aren't planned. They're stumbled upon. They're unexpected. And they happen when you're paying attention. He felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. I'm paying attention, he said quietly, meeting her gaze steadily. Her smile deepened, subtle but undeniable. Good. Then maybe you're ready for what's coming next. Jerry felt a shiver of anticipation. Whatever that meant, he knew the night had only just begun. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then Jennifer leaned back, tilting her head with a small, teasing grin. I think we should play a little game. Nothing dangerous. Just words, questions, truths. See what we discover. Jerry set his wine down, intrigued despite himself. A game? All right. I'm in. Jennifer's eyes sparkled. Good. Let's see who learns the most by the end of the night. Jerry leaned back, glass of wine in hand, feeling the electricity in the room. Jennifer perched on the coffee table, legs crossed, a small, mischievous smile playing on her lips. All right, she said, voice soft but commanding. The game begins. I'll ask a question, you answer honestly, then you ask me one. No dodging, no holding back. Jerry raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Sounds dangerous. Exactly, she replied. Perfectly dangerous. She leaned forward slightly, resting her elbows on her knees. Question 1. What's the most impulsive thing you've ever done? Jerry smirked, considering. Well, I once skipped school to meet a friend in the city. We ended up wandering around until midnight. Totally unplanned. I got caught, of course. Jennifer laughed softly. I like that. Unplanned adventures are the best kind. Your turn, Jerry said, leaning forward, feeling the pull of her gaze. She tilted her head, eyes sparkling. All right. Truth or dare? Jerry chuckled. Truth. Jennifer's smile widened. Good choice. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken? Emotionally? Jerry hesitated for a moment, then exhaled. I told someone how I really felt, even though I knew it could ruin the friendship. I didn't care. I had to be honest. Her eyes softened. That takes courage. Most people never do that. Your turn, he said again, a playful edge in his voice. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. What's your biggest temptation right now? Jerry felt his pulse quicken. The air between them was thick, every word charged. He paused, choosing carefully. Curiosity, he said finally. Curiosity about unexpected moments, about people who challenge me. Jennifer's smile deepened, faintly approving. Good answer. You're paying attention, like I hoped. They continued the game, questions becoming more revealing, laughter punctuating the tension. Jennifer asked about regrets, embarrassing moments, even secrets he had never told anyone. Jerry countered with questions about her dreams, her fears, and how she felt about life's unpredictability. With each answer, the distance between them seemed to shrink, the energy in the room building steadily. Jerry found himself leaning in more, drawn by her confidence, her presence, the subtle hints in her words. Jennifer's eyes flicked toward the clock briefly. "Tommy's going to be back soon," she said casually, though there was a subtle tease in her tone. "But we still have time. We're in no rush, right?" Jerry shook his head. "No rush." "Good," she said. She leaned back, sipping her wine, eyes never leaving his. Because the best discoveries happen when there's no rush. When you explore slowly, carefully, letting each moment sink in. He nodded, heart racing. "I think I understand." Jennifer's gaze softened, but the spark remained. "You do, Jerry. You really do." The game continued, questions becoming more personal, more revealing, but always clever, always teasing. They laughed, shared stories, and the room seemed to shrink around them, the outside world fading completely. Finally, Jennifer set her glass down, leaning back with a small sigh. "I think that's enough for one round," she said. "We've learned quite a bit, haven't we?" Jerry nodded, smiling faintly. "Yeah, more than I expected." Jennifer's lips curved into a knowing grin. "Good. That's the point of the game." The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the room for a moment. Jerry realized that though Tommy could return at any second, he didn't want to leave. Not yet. Not until he knew more. Until he had fully experienced this night. Jennifer glanced toward the hallway. "Don't worry about time. Tonight is just for us." Jerry felt a thrill. Whatever just for us meant, he was ready to find out. Jerry remained on the couch, glass of wine in hand, feeling the warmth from the room and the electricity in the air. Jennifer had moved slightly closer on the coffee table, legs still crossed, her gaze steady and teasing. Every glance she gave him made his pulse quicken. "You know," she said softly, "most people don't get it. They see someone and think they know them instantly. But you..." She leaned in just slightly. "You notice the small things, the details, the subtleties." Jerry swallowed, leaning back, trying to appear casual. "I guess I've always paid attention. Maybe too much sometimes." "Too much is never enough," she said, eyes twinkling. "It's how you understand people, how you connect. Don't you think?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think that's true." Jennifer's lips curved into a small smile, almost mischievous. "Good, because connections, they make nights like this memorable." Jerry felt a thrill. Every word, every glance was a push-pull of tension. He couldn't look away, and he didn't want to. "So," she continued, leaning forward slightly, resting her elbows on her knees. "Tell me, Jerry, what do you think about when you're alone? Really alone?" He hesitated, then decided honesty was the only way. "I think about possibilities, about choices I didn't make, about moments that could be different." Jennifer tilted her head, studying him. "Interesting. And do you ever wonder about the unexpected?" "The unexpected?" he echoed. "Yes," she said, leaning back, crossing her legs again. "The things that surprise you, challenge you, make you. Think twice. Do you chase them, or do you let them pass?" Jerry smiled faintly. "I guess it depends on the moment and the person." Her eyes met his directly, unflinching. "And if that person were right here, challenging you, Would you chase it? He felt his pulse spike. I think I would. Jennifer's small laugh filled the room. Good answer. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The clock ticked quietly, yet the world outside seemed to vanish. Every sound, every thought, centered on this small living room, the tension between them, the subtle play of words and glances. You know, she said, standing and stretching slightly, Tommy's probably on his way soon, but we have a few minutes left, a few minutes to enjoy the moment. Jerry nodded, heart racing. I'm glad we do. Jennifer returned to sit closer, though still not too close, maintaining that perfect balance of teasing and attention. Moments like this, they're rare, she whispered. They don't happen often. They're fleeting. And yet, they can change everything. Jerry leaned forward slightly, glass of wine resting on the coffee table. I don't want to forget this. Jennifer smiled knowingly. You won't. Not easily. A soft laugh escaped her, and she reached over to adjust a pillow on the couch near him. The small gesture felt intimate, subtle, and it made Jerry acutely aware of every detail. Her touch, her presence, the warmth that seemed to radiate from her. Do you ever think about how small moments can mean so much? She asked, voice low. All the time, Jerry admitted. Jennifer tilted her head, her gaze softening. Then you understand why some nights linger, not because of the grand gestures, but because of the subtleties, the words, the glances, the electricity. Jerry nodded, feeling a shiver run down his spine. He realized the night wasn't just about conversation or wine. It was about this tension, this connection, this dance of words and gestures. And yet, she added, her lips curving faintly, we still have to let the unexpected come to us. Slowly, carefully, savored. Jerry leaned back, heart racing, realizing she had him completely. The night was far from over, but for the first time, he understood the full gravity of the game they were playing, and he didn't want it to end. Jerry remained on the couch, heart pounding, aware of every small movement Jennifer made. She had moved slightly closer, leaning back casually but with an unmistakable intent in her gaze. The soft glow of the lamp cast shadows across her face, highlighting the subtle curve of her smile. You know, she began, voice soft, the most memorable nights are never the planned ones. They sneak up on you. They catch you off guard. Jerry swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. I can see that tonight. Jennifer tilted her head, studying him. Do you know why I invited you over? Jerry shrugged, unsure what she meant. To see Tommy. Her laugh was low, teasing. Partly, but mostly. Because I wanted to see you, alone, unfiltered, to see how you handle unpredictability. He leaned back, trying to appear calm. Unpredictability can be exciting. Exactly, she said, leaning forward slightly. Exciting, challenging, even a little dangerous, and yet irresistible. Jerry felt his pulse quicken. He realized how acutely aware he was of her presence, her proximity, the subtle weight of her attention. Every word she spoke seemed to linger in the air, thickening the tension. So, she continued, voice low, what would you do if I asked you to? Step into the unexpected tonight? He met her gaze steadily. I think I'd be ready for it. Jennifer's smile deepened. Good, because the unexpected isn't always simple. It's subtle. It's a game of words, glances, moments. Jerry laughed softly, despite the tension. I'm ready to play then. She leaned back, swirling her wine, eyes never leaving his. The best part is seeing how far someone is willing to go, how much they notice, how much they care about the details. He felt a shiver run down his spine. I notice, he admitted. Her gaze softened for a fraction of a second. Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock. Jerry realized how small the living room felt, how every glance, every gesture, every word seemed amplified. Jennifer tilted her head again, playful now, teasing. Do you ever think about how small actions can carry weight? How a single glance, a single word, can change everything? All the time, Jerry said, feeling a thrill in his chest. She leaned slightly closer, just enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her. Then you understand why tonight is different, why this moment matters. Jerry felt the tension coil tighter. I do, he said quietly. Jennifer smiled, setting her wine down on the table. Good, because the unexpected is coming. Slowly, carefully. It's about savoring the anticipation, the uncertainty, the thrill of the unknown. He nodded, heart racing, fully aware of how every word, every glance, every subtle movement carried meaning. He was completely drawn in, unable to look away, unable to stop thinking about the night, about her, about the tension that seemed to wrap around him like a living thing. And yet, she added, her voice soft, teasing, we have to wait for the right moment, to see how far curiosity takes us, to explore, carefully. Jerry leaned back on the couch, exhaling slowly. I can wait, he said. I want to see where it goes. Jennifer's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. Good. Patience is part of the game, and tonight, we're just beginning. The soft laugh that followed lingered in the room, mixing with the quiet hum of the appliances, the warm light, the tension, and anticipation. Jerry realized one thing for certain. Nothing about tonight would be forgotten. Jerry sat on the couch, heart still racing, aware of every subtle shift in the room. Jennifer had returned to the living room from the kitchen, carrying her wine glass, a faint smile playing on her lips. The air felt charged, electric, as though every glance, every word hung heavier than before. You know, she said softly, her voice low and deliberate. Nights like this, they don't happen often, moments that feel bigger than they are. They sneak up on you, catch you off guard, and leave a mark. Jerry leaned back, glass in hand, swirling the deep red wine. I can feel that tonight, he said quietly, meeting her gaze. Jennifer tilted her head slightly, studying him, her eyes sparkling. Do you know why I invited you over tonight, Jerry? He hesitated, then said, to see Tommy, and maybe to spend time with you. She laughed softly, the sound lingering in the room. Partly, but mostly, I wanted to see how you'd handle unpredictability, how you'd respond when the rules were different. Jerry felt a thrill, a combination of excitement and nervousness. Unpredictability can be exciting, he said. Exactly, she said, leaning forward just enough to close the space between them. Exciting, challenging, and sometimes a little dangerous, but irresistible, don't you think? His pulse quickened. He realized how intensely aware he was of her presence, of the warmth radiating from her, of every subtle movement she made. Every word felt heavier, every glance longer, the tension building steadily. Jennifer's gaze softened briefly, then sharpened with a playful intensity. Jerry, what would you do if the unexpected were right here, standing in front of you, testing your patience, challenging your curiosity? I'd meet it head on, he said, voice firm but steady. Her smile deepened. Good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Because the unexpected isn't just a moment. It's a series of choices, small and deliberate. It's the tension, the anticipation, the little details that build up to something unforgettable. Jerry felt the weight of her words sink in. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, the soft golden light. All of it became amplified, the room smaller, every detail sharper. Jennifer leaned back slightly, swirling her wine, then rested her elbows on her knees, tilting her head thoughtfully. Curiosity is powerful. It drives you to explore, to notice the subtle, the hidden, the unexpected. Jerry nodded slowly. I've noticed, he admitted, heart racing. Good, she said, her voice softening. Because noticing is the first step. It's what makes moments like tonight linger. He realized that the night wasn't just about conversation or wine. It was about tension, subtle gestures, the interplay of glances and words, the anticipation that built with every second. Jennifer stood suddenly, walking toward the window, back to him but not turning. The world outside is predictable, she said softly, almost to herself. People follow routines, schedules, rules. But here, tonight, we define our own rules, our own moments. Jerry remained seated, eyes on her, absorbing every word. And I'm ready for it, he said quietly. She turned back toward him, eyes meeting his directly, voice soft, teasing, yet deliberate. Good, because tonight is about paying attention to the details, the tension, the possibilities, to the unexpected. A faint laugh escaped her, carrying warmth and mischief. And even if Tommy comes back, we'll have these moments, this connection, the subtle game of words, glances, and choices. Jerry felt a shiver run through him. He knew this night would linger in his mind. The subtle touches, the teasing, the conversation, the tension. It all created a memory he wouldn't forget. Jennifer moved closer, a deliberate step, careful but intentional. Patience is key, Jerry. The unexpected unfolds slowly. Every glance, every word, builds anticipation. And when the right moment comes, Jerry leaned forward slightly, heart racing. I'll be ready. Her smile widened faintly. I know you will. The soft hum of the appliances, the golden glow of the room, the subtle tension between them, everything wrapped around Jerry, heightening his awareness. He realized that the night wasn't over. It wasn't just about wine or conversation. It was about the slow build, the anticipation, the dance of curiosity and subtle attraction. And that, Jennifer said softly, leaning back, is the power of the unexpected. Moments like this, they linger. They change how you see things, how you feel, how you notice, how you live. Jerry exhaled slowly, feeling a mixture of thrill and calm. The night had been unpredictable, challenging, and exhilarating. And though nothing had fully crossed any lines, the tension, the game, and the connection ensured that it would be a night he and the audience would remember. Jennifer's lips curved into a final, knowing smile. Remember, Jerry, the unexpected is always around the corner, and when you notice it, life becomes unforgettable. Jerry raised his glass slightly toward her, too noticing. Jennifer clinked her glass gently with his, her eyes sparkling. To the unexpected. The room settled into a quiet hum. The clock ticked. The golden light bathed everything in warmth. And Jerry knew that the night and the memory of it would linger long after the last drop of wine